debate here on eruptin.com. Today we are discussing the war against youth, an article that first appeared in an Esquire magazine article by Stephen March. In the room today we have Katie Irwin. Give us a wave, Katie. She's an actor here in New York City. Paul, a journalist. Randy, marketing manager, who is joining us from Austin, Texas. And Noop, CEO at Dapperly, currently on it looks like a private jet. Or wait, that's a commercial flight. Phil Axe, a law student, and then Sarah, an account executive. Welcome to the room. Let's jump right in. What did you guys think about the article? Randy, we'll start with you.
I thought it was a little biased, and I thought that it blamed a lot of the trials of our generation on some generational tendencies and not necessarily on our own work ethic.
I think politics was left out of the article, and I think it was kind of a glaring omission by the author.
Sarah, it's an interesting point. How do you think President Obama being in office has affected your life as, you know, a 20-something who graduated college, has been out in the market for a few years?
Well, I'm hopeful that, you know, I might be able to have my loans consolidated to a better interest rate, or...
Sarah, are you telling us that the hope that Obama promised you hasn't actually led to the consolidation of your debt?
I'm saying I'm still hopeful. It's a process.
Okay.
But, you know, Randy, it's an interesting point. You know, the average student right now is graduating with, on average, $25,000 worth of student loan debt. Law school tuition, Phil, you can speak on this, has increased 317% in the past 20 years. Is it something you think that is a viable thing, that students should be thinking twice about going to grad school or even going to college?
I think they absolutely should think twice about it. You can't just like blindly succumb to and put yourself in that sort of debt. I mean, it's a calculated decision, and the cost is certainly a factor.
I think the article raised something interesting though. Is what do you stand to gain from college these days? Because are you going to college purely to get the first job when you leave college, or are you going to college to broaden your horizons? You know, look at new ways of thinking.
That references a good line in the article where I think they said that, you know, critical thinking skills had not dramatically increased now as opposed to when, you know, older generations had gone to college. And I disagree with that. I mean, I went to a really conservative high school and grade school, and I think that college definitely broadened my life, and the courses I took, you know, really did shape who I am now. And it's not something to
But is it something that people can afford, Sarah? You know, there's a time where there's over a 50% underemployment rate. So, you know, can you justify that college tuition if there's no jobs out there?
I don't know if I can justify private. I think definitely there is a swing towards public education. And I think that if I was choosing now as a college or a high school senior, I would probably have gone to Penn State as opposed to GW.
We're forgetting something. College has always been an investment. College has never been cheap, and it's never been something that's accessible to everyone. So our generation feels like we're entitled to a college education, and we're entitled to it at 18 years old. But if that's not in the cards for you, maybe there's a more responsible way to go about it. Maybe there is something to be said for working for a couple of years first.
I mean, going to college as a 25-year-old, first you're missing out on that college experience.
Okay, so there's a social implication, but social benefit is a luxury. It's not a necessity.
A lot of kids right now, I don't want to work a 9 to 5. I'm meant to enjoy my life. I want to start a business. I don't want to be a corporate sellout. I don't want to, you know, work for a boss. And it's not a, let me finish, Anoop. It's not necessarily a generational thing. You have, you know, a lot of people coming out of colleges for generations saying this, but, you know, now is a unique time in that maybe you can find an opportunity that doesn't mold itself to a 9 to 6. Randy, you had a few comments earlier on that. Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's necessarily a necessity in terms like a college education. Like, I think about the work that I do. Yes, I was required to have a degree to get my job, but I don't think the degree is what enables me to do my job.
And a new thing, I mean, I'm curious in your entrepreneurial ventures, if you didn't have a college education and someone asked you, one of your backers, you know, these are people with millions of dollars willing to give away to you, and they said, where did you go? And you said, I did not go to college. Do you think that you would have as good a chance of them investing in you?
I learned more life skills by traveling around the world than I did from GW. you may have learned
That's
those.
fine. It doesn't matter what people are doing
More life skills.
with a degree. We're talking about the degree.
We're learn more life skills and more entrepreneurial skills.
Yeah, but there
As
has to
far
be
as your
some
network.
acknowledgement on your part that the traveling around the world and the life skills that you say that you've gained, that's a luxury and that's not the norm for most people. So I don't know if you can necessarily rely on that because that's really circumstantial. And in your situation, circumstantial is not indicative of the recession conditions for most people.
The article here is called "The War Against Youth," and there's been study after study showing that if you do graduate in a recession, it can take you, 5-10 years longer just to make the same sort of salary you would have made if you were graduating in a strong economy. But do you think that's ultimately putting people at a disadvantage, or do you think there's something to be learned from it?
No, I think that there's an inherent amount of opportunity that wasn't there before that we have as a generation. The question is whether or not you take advantage of it.
And Randy, give me an example. What would you tell, Sean, who's sitting out there, sitting on his couch watching this, been looking for a job for 6 months, had to move back in with his parents, and has student loan debt? He's applied to jobs. I mean, what do you want him to do? Start a Twitter account and get a TV show out of it?
Start a Twitter account, take an internship, put yourself in a situation that's outside of your comfort zone.
I've got a friend we moved here. She moved here at the same time I did, and she's really struggled to, find work in her field. And I think that's the case for a lot of Americans. I've heard stories of people.
What's the answer? The answer is get a job outside of your field. The answer is try something different.
I've heard of people even struggling to do that.
Sarah, you graduated from a great college, and you're living in New York now. You have a very great job, but it took you a while. How do you think that ultimately affected your life?
Absolutely, and I kind of call it the dark days since we graduated in 2008. It was so rough. I wanted to immediately come to New York. I couldn't get a job here initially. I moved back with my parents. I did random jobs. I worked in the family law firm. I waitressed. So demeaning, so awful, especially when my parents had just spent $200,000 on this education. But now I value every day that I go to work. I get up and I say, hey, whatever, I have this meeting, I have that meeting, the client sucks. I am so grateful to be working, and I think that experience has given me such an appreciation for the 9 to 5. And yeah, of course, I'd love to be entrepreneur, doing my thing, having backers, having my parents pay for everything. That's not reality, but it's given me a better work ethic.
I think that's ultimately what's going to distinguish our generation is that we're more resilient and we're going to value a lot of opportunities because we had to work harder for them.
Andy, you sound a little bit critical of these entrepreneurs, but we're also living in a time where you take your Forbes, greatest innovators and billionaires and so forth, and you see the Mark Zuckerbergs, you see the Instagram founder, and these are people who are at an unprecedented rate in their 20s that no generation has seen before.
No, that's true, but here's the thing. Yes, there are more of them, and I think that's a product of our unprecedented access to information and capital, but it's still really important to remember that the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Steve Jobs, Drew Houston, they're exceptions to the rule. And just because we grew up in an environment where our parents told us that we were amazing and you get a trophy for participation does not mean you are going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. And that's what's really important for us to remember.
All right.
I think that dreams are relative, and everyone can still have their dream and have their side project, but not to give up on the 9 to 5 and not to give up on supporting yourself. Yeah, some people become homeless and then they become millionaires. I can do my thing 9 to 5. I can take a class at night, and I can still feed my soul, and I can find little ways throughout the day to do that. It's not one or the other. It's not, I'm going to go to China like a noob for freaking however long and then live with my parents and get some backers. It doesn't have to be that extreme.
I totally agree.
So what advice, we touched on it a little bit, but what advice would you give to somebody who is out of work and trying to figure out what to do, and they just simply can't get a job? They're part of that 54% underemployed, got student loans, probably moved back home. Phil, you had an interesting take. What would you say to them?
Move home, save money.
When you can't find a job, you just got to keep looking. What else is there you can do? You got to devote yourself to trying to find a job.
I would say, look at maybe freelance opportunities, or maybe even look at like an internship. But you've got to be careful with an internship that you don't then get taken advantage of.
Great discussion. Thank you all so much for joining tonight, and we want to know what you think at home. So let us know on Twitter, or join the conversation with a comment below. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.